Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Swami podcast of the World Cup preview between India and Pakistan. One of the biggest rivalries, if not the biggest rivalry in world cricket. Every time these two teams get on the field, it's not so much about the cricket as the actual passion and the rivalry and the history between both countries go towards each other. So it's going to be a fantastic game on the weekend of this World Cup on 15th of February in Adelaide. And joining us today to preview and go through everything about the game will be former ABC broadcaster Glenn Mitchell and also freelance reporter Gaurav Joshi. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Nice to be with you, boys.
Hi, Karthik. Hi, Glenn.
Good day, boys. Thanks for joining us, as always. It's always a pleasure to have you both on. As I said, India-Pakistan, this is the biggest rivalry in world cricket. Every time these two teams play, there's always something happens. There's always fireworks. There's always drama. There's always, very tight contests. And we are expecting nothing different this Sunday as well. I guess, Gaurav, from your perspective, to kick it off, we've seen Team India perform. They've been here in Australia for the last couple of months and have only just won a game the other day against Afghanistan, but have been winless all summer and people have pretty much written them off. How do you see them performing in this World Cup, especially in this India-Pakistan clash?
Well, leading up to the World Cup, does form really matter? I'm not sure. I mean, 2011, India didn't start off great. They were beaten by down in South Africa. I think even if you go back 2007, when Australia went to the West Indies, they got beaten 3-0 in New Zealand. I think they lost the CB series here against in England. And so it's a similar kind of thing for India as they build up. I think they're refreshed. I just wonder that if how homesick they are, because from 1992, I think Ravi Shastri, who's in charge of the team, he's spoken about it and how that's been the hardest challenge of trying to ensure that the guys are fresh for the World Cup. But they can keep all that behind. I mean, everyone talks about form. Even in 2011, India playing at home, their form at the start of the World Cup wasn't that great either. I mean, I think they tied against England after scoring 350 odd. They lost to South Africa in a game where they scored 295. So the form is. I mean, I don't know how much can you judgeify. I think they're ready to go. I mean, I watched their training sessions today. They seem to be training for 3.5 hours, getting some centre wicket practice. So, I think they're well prepared. And it's just another game, and that's what I think Dhoni's good about. I think he just ensures that this is just another game for India, and we can't focus too much about who they're playing. We just take it, as a first opponent in the World Cup.
Yeah, fair enough. Valid points you make there, I guess, with Dhoni's way of taking things as they come, and as you said, one game at a time. Now, Glenn, from a Pakistan perspective, how do you think they're going to come about this? They've obviously played a couple of games in New Zealand and haven't gone so well. How do you think their build-up and preparation has been? And recent form, as Gaurav has said, he believes it doesn't or he questions whether it really matters or not. I mean, what's your take on that? Is form leading up toward the tournament a big factor, or is it just, again, like India, stepping up to the plate and taking each game as it comes?
I think you'd like to be in form. You'd like to have some sort of running, success behind you. I mean, teams have been able to turn it around that haven't started World Cups in, an outstanding fashion. And indeed, teams have come in off, scant sort of form in the leading. But certainly, winning breeds success and winning breeds confidence. And I think when you're going into a tournament, which is the biggest one-day tournament in the world, I mean, it's cricket's Olympic Games. It happens every 4 years. It's the only one-day international tournament that people really remember who actually wins. And Pakistan, again, are going to be one of these enigmas. You don't really know. I mean, no team in the world in the last 20 years has been as unpredictable as Pakistan when they are on song and they fire. I mean, we saw what they did to Australia in the United Arab Emirates in the Test arena over there. I mean, Australia didn't get within a ball's roar of them, and under Misbah ul-Haq, that they were playing very well. They looked to be very united. If they hit their straps in this tournament, then they could go a long, long way. But getting back to what we were saying before, I think India's form leading in is not such a crucial thing in this World Cup, given the way the format I mean, they're going to get through. They're going to get out of the pool stage. Now, they mightn't get necessarily the seeding they may want if they, say, were to lose to Pakistan in the opening game, but by virtue of the way this tournament is played with 14 teams and really, outside the top 8, it's problematic as to which of the bottom ones are going to get in. Every one of the top-tier test nations are going to qualify for the pointy end of the tournament, and that plays into a team like India's hands, if you like. They've come off modest form this Australian summer. They haven't actually won an official match on the tour. They've won a practice match, but they haven't won an international fixture against Australia or England, whether it be in Test or one-day cricket. But by virtue of the way this tournament, the first couple of weeks of it really mean nothing. A lot of it's like dancing with your sister. I mean, some of these matches are going to be meaningless, and a team like India can actually work its way into the tournament, even though it's not bringing stellar form in from the very first game that they have.
Absolutely, it's as I said, it's a very good point you make. It's a long tournament, similar to the 2011 World Cup, where it's really just about qualifying for the quarterfinals and then pretty much winning 3 games in a row and winning the World Cup. So in that sense, you're right. I mean, despite India's poor recent form, it's certainly not the end of the world for them. Now, Glenn, specifically for the Indian team, you've obviously seen the team selection and the 15-man squad. Do you agree? Do you disagree? There was a lot of talking points about Stuart Binney's selection in the side, and whether or not that was the right choice. Obviously, Ishant Sharma having to pull out because of injury and Mohit Sharma coming in. I mean, do you think that was the right choices, and or is there somebody that shouldn't be there? And let me ask you the question: Do you believe, like most Indian fans, that Yuvraj Singh should still be in the World Cup squad?
Yeah, I mean, we know what Yuvraj Singh can do, but I wonder to a degree if Yuvraj now, I mean, I haven't seen enough of him, obviously, in the domestic setup in India, but I just wonder whether Yuvraj now is starting to get into the area where Chris Gayle is. I don't know how many games Chris Gayle, for example, will really influence now for the West Indies. I don't think he's the player that he was going back even a couple of years, even maybe going back 12 to 18 months. And I don't know whether Yuvraj Singh, at the stage of the career that he's in now, would really make that sort of impactful difference if he was in the Indian team. He's certainly got the ability to play cameos, but I don't know whether he is the sort of player where he is in his career now to be a consistent performer, over a 6-week period, and they're going to play something like 7 or 8 games to actually win the World Cup. I'm not too sure really that Yuvraj would actually be that big a benefit over the entirety of the tournament for India. And I might be wrong. I'm interested in what you blokes think, but I've looked at Chris Gayle lately, and Gayle is really starting to, he's really a shadow of his former self. And when you're a player, I think, like a Gayle and a Yuvraj, you're very much an eye player. They both got decent techniques, but your eye and your reflexes are the things that start to go when you start to age as a cricketer. And we're seeing it with Gayle at the moment, and I'm not too sure really how much genuine, high-quality international cricket Yuvraj has in him nowadays.
Yep, that's a very good point there. Gaurav, what about yourself? I mean, as you must have heard a lot of talk about Yuvraj missing out, and obviously also Stuart Binney, as I said, controversial selection there. I mean, you've obviously seen Team India practice in the practice games and leading up to this World Cup. How has Binney gone, and has he so far warranted his selection? And do you believe that UV should still warrant a spot in the side?
Well, rather, I mean, starting off with Yuvraj, I think he's had two bites of the cherry, if you could call that, from MS Dhoni's point of view, because let's think about it. Pretty much, there was so much hype and so much pressure put on Yuvraj after India lost that T20 World Cup in Bangladesh, where Yuvraj came in, I think, on the 14th over. And in the 16th or 17th over, he played out 6 or 7 dot balls, which basically it just gave the sign to Dhoni that this wasn't the Yuvraj who was there 4 years ago. And as Glenn said, the eyes are gone, the reflexes are gone. And once Dhoni had lost faith in him that time, there was no way Yuvraj was ever going to enter. If Dhoni had something to do with selection, who knows how the Indian selection works? I mean, of course, a lot of saying that Stuart Binney because he's Roger Binney's son in terms of selection. But look, I mean, one thing India have to look for, I think, with Stuart Binney. If they're going to play him, they need to play him down the order because he can actually hit the long ball. One of the greatest concerns, I think, for India in this World Cup is what follows after MS Dhoni, and he's been at number 6, but number 7 and 8. I mean, Jadeja and Ashwin are very good batsmen, but they're not going to clear the ropes. They're not the Luke Ronchi. They're not the James Faulkner. They're not a David Miller. And I think that's where the concern is for India. So if Stuart Binney needs to play, he needs to play at number 7. But then to justify his position, he's going to have to bowl 10 overs. And we saw in the Test series in England, despite him being number 6, MS Dhoni didn't bowl him enough. So there's probably a lack of trust there from MS Dhoni. So whether he fits the bill, it's probably not. But at this stage, it looks like Bhuvaneshwar Kumar doesn't look anywhere close to 100% fit. And if India want to play swing bowler up the front, then logically Stuart Binney's the choice. And MS did that in a couple of try series as well. So looks like that's where they'll trend. But that's the only way I think there's a space for Stuart Binney. But it depends on what kind of surfaces India get. I mean, Adelaide, you think it's going to be another 300-run pitch. So I think India will play to their strengths and play an Ashwin and a Jadeja. So, yeah, but Yuvraj definitely, no, I don't think he was ever going to be picked for this World Cup.
Okay. Now, you mentioned the bowling and Stuart Binney coming into bowl and opening the bowling up, maybe potentially even some of the other guys. Glenn, what do you make of the bowling attack? Obviously, that's always been an Achilles heel for Team India. And we've seen, especially with the new rules in the one-day game, that their bowling and the death bowling is probably not up to the mark. I mean, how do you think? How much of a role or how much of an impact will that play for their performances in this tournament?
I think it's going to have a major impact. I mean, again, if you look at the Indian team, batting is their strength. Although having said that, I mean, someone like Shikhar Dhawan's had a very disappointing time down under. I mean, dropped during the Test series and has made a couple of starts in the one-day series along the way, whether it was in the triangular series or the practice matches. But I mean, the bowling once again is going to be the Achilles heel for India, and I think this is going to be the highest. This will be the highest scoring World Cup in history. I mean, I think if we look back, I just wrote an article just the other day about it. I think this is going to be an incredibly high scoring World Cup because when you think it's only the T20 World Cup was the first one was only held 7 years ago, and the IPL started about the same time. And I reckon in recent times we've seen the inventiveness of batsmen now to be able to, someone like a Glenn Maxwell or James Faulkner, I mean, they can access virtually any part of the ground in which to score runs. And towards the death, that is going to be an area where India has to tighten up. They're going to come up against players that do have, like Luke Ronchi, batting down the order for New Zealand. These players nowadays, with the powerful bats they've got, with some of the grounds we're going to play on, you look at the Wellington ground, the boundaries are less than 65 metres, and that the inventiveness that players have, I think nowadays, more than ever, bowlers that are able to bowl well in the last, say, 7 or 8 overs are worth their weight in gold. And I really wonder whether India have those players, like you look at someone like Stark, who's very effective with the new ball, but then he can be equally effective bowling those, those tailing Yorkers late in the match, something that, Lasith Malinga has made a whole career out of. I just wonder whether India have got 2 bowlers that can operate in tandem towards the end of an innings, whether they're trying to, limit the first innings of an opponent or whether they're trying to prevent the opponent from winning batting second. I think that is the biggest conundrum that still faces Indian cricket, because I think this will be a very high-scoring World Cup, because I think most of the grounds they play on, both in Australia and India, I think will be fair batting surfaces. And I think as a result, bowling at the death is going to be the most important thing for every team.
Yep, no, you're absolutely spot on. And obviously, when we think of bowling, and in particular fast bowling, we think of Pakistan and how well they churn out all their fast bowlers. It's amazing that they're next door to India, but India seem to produce batsmen and Pakistan seem to produce more bowlers. But Gaurav, on the topic of the Pakistani bowlers, what are your thoughts on them? How do you think they're going to impact the World Cup, but in particularly this Sunday's game against India? Obviously, as we know, it's always a big contest, and it's always going to go right down to the wire, and big high-pressure game. Whose bowlers are going to stand up? And how do you think Pakistanis will go?
Well, I mean, one thing that stands out about Pakistan bowlers in this World Cup, I think, is I mean, you know, they're so depleted. We know that, and it's almost a sense that I feel that the Pakistan batting is actually stronger than the Pakistan bowling. I mean, normally we don't say that. Whether they, and that's not because the Pakistan batting has raised their bar. It's just because the bowling has dropped. I mean, you just have to look at Wahab Riaz. I'm not sure how fit he is, and you just have to look. They have to look through Mohammad Irfan. And who's going to be doing all the bowling? And Shahid Afridi is the leading spinner. I mean, last 3 years, Syed Ajmal and Mohammad Hafiz and Shahid Afridi have shared the duties. Now there's only Shahid Afridi. Harry Shohel is one of the guys who will come in and bowl some left-arm spin. So, and as I said, Wahab Riaz is there. So there's no lack of depth there, and I think that's a concern for Pakistan, which means they have to rely a lot more on their batsmen. And well, they've got a very good opener in Ahmed Shehzad. I mean, on flat wickets he should do pretty well, but put so much pressure. Yunus Khan, I'm not sure about him at number 3. There's a lot of, you know, his strike rate over the last 12 months is dropped down to like 68, 69. So does he fit the bill? I mean, is there a chance of playing Umar Akmal and batting between the two veterans, put him at number 4, Misbah at 5? So there's a lot of problems there, I think, for Pakistan. Their bowling isn't as sharp, and of course, Indian batting is. I think on these sort of pitches, they'll thrive. So. I mean, that's why I think India will win. I think probably if you had the likes of Syed Ajmal and so forth, Pakistan, I wouldn't say favourites, but you think they'll give it really a shake. But here, on these flat batting tracks, depleted bowling lineup, I think India's definitely got the edge over Pakistan.
There you go. So we've got a tip from you there, Gaurav. You're tipping India to win. Glenn, what are your thoughts on the game, my friend? How do you see it going? Is obviously, you know, India-Pakistan games, as I've mentioned most of the time, that they're going to be a close contest. How do you think it's going to turn out, and who's going to be the winner?
I think India will get up on the weekend because I think they've got a more balanced team. You know, I agree that Pakistan's bowling has been really severely depleted. You know, in regard to injury and in regard to, you know, the laws in regard to legality of deliveries and everything like that. That they've been very badly hamstrung, and I just think across the board India has a better team from 1 to 11 than what Pakistan does. The thing that still worries me is that, you know, India has to make sure that they can close out the game with the ball. Someone like Virat Kohli, you know, is been on a bit of a downer since the heroics of the Test series, but you'd back him in to come good. Rohit Sharma had a good innings the other day. The one that really does interest me is MS Dhoni. Just what MS Dhoni is going to be able to do in that middle order, because as we mentioned, you know, after that, you know, Jadeja, Ashwin, they're good players, but India again is going to be so reliant on Dhoni being able to either hit the rope or clear it, and there's going to be a lot of pressure on him. And yeah, if he doesn't come off, if Dhoni doesn't fire even beyond this match on Saturday, I reckon India are going to have some real problems. But this weekend, I think India will get the job done on Sunday, and I think they'll be on the winning side of the ledger, and I think immediately that's going to put a fair bit of pressure on Pakistan, because I think their bowling stocks will be pretty much put to the sword this weekend by India, and it could spell, I think, the future of what Pakistan may look like for the remainder of the tournament when they come up against the top tier nations.
I think a good point that Glenn made about MS Dhoni, Karthik, and I was just having a look at I think he's played about 185 one-day innings, and about 1/3 of them he's been there right at the end, whether it's in the first innings or in the second innings. And now, if you look at his last 19 innings, he's only been not out twice, so that's 1 out of 9 occasions, and he hasn't finished off his innings. And when this was actually put up to him in the press conference, and he sort of went back on the back foot, saying, "Well, I haven't played a lot of cricket," but clearly there was that T20 match last year against in England where they needed 11 runs, I think, and he didn't trust his partner, who's Ambati Raidu, who's no means a slogger, and he's a proper top order batsman, and we've seen him do incredible things in IPL. So, and I think the pressure is getting to Dhoni, as Glenn mentioned. Nobody down at 7, 8, 9, and suddenly he feels that he has to be there at the end, and he's not being able to take that pressure on. I think he's letting too much of it build in his mind. I think he's been too he's trying to be calculative too much, and I think that's affecting his game. So it's going to be very interesting what this series is in terms of chasing over the last 3 years. I think 80% of the games when India's won chasing, either Kohli or Dhoni have been there at the end. So clearly, India rely a lot on those two players, and currently they're the two players who are out of form.
You're right. That's certainly going to be interesting to see how things pan out on Sunday. Big game, high pressure game, and when pressure comes, a lot of people don't necessarily perform to their potential. So, we look forward to Sunday's game. Before we finish up, guys, I'll just get a quick tip from you both. Man of the one player from India and Pakistan who you think will have a breakout series, man of the series of the whole tournament, and then a World Cup winner. Gaurav, what do you think?
Let's go with Indian batting. Ajinkya Rahane, I think he's the most complete batsman in that Indian team. I don't want to say Virat Kohli is a flat wicket bully, too loud, but yes, I think Rahane is a complete batsman. I think Pakistan's bowling, it has to be Mohammad Irfan. He's the danger man. Who would play in the World Cup final? I think Australia, and let's go for a dark horse. I think Sri Lanka.
Okay, Australia, Sri Lanka, and the winner?
I think Australia's got to win. Although, if it's in Melbourne, and we might have 50-50 amount of support with a number of Sri Lankans down there in Melbourne.
Absolutely. There's certainly a lot of Sri Lankans in Melbourne. Glenn, yourself, stand out the breakout player for India and Pakistan, a man of the series, and the World Cup finalists and winners.
Yeah, I think it's hard to go past Rahane as well. I mean, I was incredibly impressed with the way he batted towards the back end of the Test series. He is a complete player, and he is really going to be, along with Kohli, who's still only in his mid-20s. I mean, they are the future of Indian cricket going forward, and I think he will be an outstanding player. I actually, even though he's 40 years of age, I actually think Misbah-ul-Haq will probably be the most prolific batsman for Pakistan in the tournament, which really doesn't say a lot, does it, when you're talking about a bloke who's closer to 41 than he is to 40, and he may actually be their leading run scorer. The bloke that I think will actually be the player of the series, I actually am going for Kane Williamson, the New Zealand batsman. His form line in the last 3 or 4 months has been incredible. I mean, an innings of 242 in a Test match, not out in Wellington. His batting in one-day cricket has been superb. He's going to face a lot of balls if he stays in, because he's right at the top of the order. I think he's at the top of his game at the moment, and for mine, I think Kane Williamson will actually be the leading run scorer in the series, given that New Zealand gets to play all their matches virtually at home. And as far as the tournament's concerned, I think Australia will make the final. The big one for me will be South Africa, I think. Whether they get through to the final, I think, will be predicated on whether they bat first or second in the matches that really count towards the end of the tournament. Again, the other day, I know it's a practice match or whatever, but they had to bat second against New Zealand, and again, they were humbled. The track record for South Africa in recent times of chasing more than 250 is not good. We know that they can score 350 plus batting first, but they very seldom are able to replicate that form when they're batting second. And if the toss doesn't go their way, in a quarter-final or a semi-final, then a team that has one of the most, one of the best skilled lineups. When you're talking about players like Amla, De Villiers, Duplessis, and then at the other end of the scale you've got Morkel, Philander, Steyn, and Imran Tahir is a very good limited overs bowler. But if they have to bat second in the matches that count, they mightn't get to the final. So I think Australia, and I wouldn't mind betting for the first time, New Zealand might actually make the final of a World Cup. I mean, they've been a semi-finalist many times when they played on foreign soil, and they've got a good team at the moment. I mean, McCullum, Taylor, and as I said, Williamson, they've got some good steady bowling. They've got that X-factor of Ronk in the middle order. If South Africa has to bat second in the dying stages of the tournament, I wouldn't mind betting that Australia will play New Zealand in the final.
There you
I
go.
hope they live up to the expectations, Glenn. I think that's the biggest hurdle for New Zealand this World Cup, isn't it? I mean, every time we feel like nobody expects them to go through, this time people are expected. So if they run into a quarter-final against India or something, it's a knockout game, I think it's more of a mental challenge than what it is on the cricketing field.
But it's interesting. I mean, as you mentioned a moment ago, you're sort of smoky Sri Lanka for the final. I mean, look how well New Zealand did against them. I know it wasn't a World Cup, but just recently, they did very well in that one-day series, and I like their batting. And I think that the one thing that's completing them now is Luke Ronke and what he's able to do in the middle order. A little bit, I think Australia's big problem is they've got to hope that James Faulkner is fit for the back half of this tournament. Otherwise, you're going to have to rely on someone like Maxwell to do what Faulkner does. But Faulkner does it sometimes at number 8. Maxwell's going to have to try and do it at 5 and 6, and that's a lot more difficult. But yeah, I just think that Ronke just completes that New Zealand team. But I agree with you. I mean, if New Zealand plays a final, I can't see them beating Australia at the MCG. I mean, I think they'll be runners up. But I reckon they're a chance. As I said, if South Africa, depending on whether they bat first or second in the matches that matter, I reckon New Zealand might be the one that fly under the radar and actually get through to a final. And I reckon that would be a great thing for cricket. I mean, a country with a population of 4 million to be able to qualify for a World Cup final, I think would be astounding.
We couldn't stand there having the All Blacks and the Black Caps winning the World Cup in the same year, could we?
Well, mate, I don't mind. What we could probably do is make them, the 8th state of Australia.
Yeah.
If we can throw them a little bit closer to Tasmania.
Some might say New Zealand, as you said, yeah, New Zealand is closer than Tassie. Well, that's certainly interesting views, gentlemen. We'll certainly wait and watch to see who makes the World Cup final. I myself believe that there's probably going to be a couple of upsets. It should still be pretty straightforward when it comes to the group stages. You know, the top 8 you expect to go through: the Australias, South Africa, England, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, India, West Indies, Pakistan, and who not. For mine, player of the tournament, I'm going to have to agree with you there, Glenn, and I do believe Kane Williamson is going to have a huge World Cup. He's in prime form, probably in the form of his life right now. So definitely for me, man of the series with him. I'm actually going to go for a India-Sri Lanka World Cup final again. I just think
that surprises me. You've got India in the final, Kartik. I can't believe that.
No, of course not. Yeah, I mean it's. I'm always the eternal optimist, as you probably have figured out by now. I just think the population in Melbourne are really hoping for an India-Sri Lanka World Cup final. I think that'll certainly be talked about for many years to come. So that's something I'm looking forward to. At least, if not the World Cup final, at least a final in Melbourne between those two teams would be certainly good with the population we have here. But
I want to ask a question of both of you, just as we wrap up. Will MS Dhoni be playing for India after the World Cup?
A big no from me. I've seen him around the practice sessions. I don't think so. He's got a young child. I think he wants to walk away, and he will. And we will never hear from him as Dhoni kind of the character he is. But keep it short, no.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on. I think this probably would be his last tournament. He probably won't make a big fanfare about it, similar to the Test series, and he'll just call it quits at the once India does bow out after they have the World Cup trophy in their hands. He'll probably just announce it there in the press conference. So, or may not even announce it at all, and just BCC may just release a statement. That's the kind of guy that he.
You should ask the same question. Will we see Michael Clarke after the World Cup, or should we?
No, I don't think we should. And I think it would actually smooth the transition for Australia as well. That Smith becomes the full-time captain of the one-day team. Clarke looks towards the Ashes in the middle of the year. But yeah, I said about 18 months, 2 years ago, even before he really started to have the injury problems, that that back injury, the recurrences of the injury, the back and the hamstring are going to become closer and closer. He's going to miss more matches than he plays. I think he'd be foolish to don the Australian one-day uniform after the World Cup.
Fair enough. Well, it's certainly, as I said, we'll wait and see how things pan out. But guys, that's all we have time for today. Thank you very much for joining us, as always, Gaurav and Glenn. It's always brilliant to have your views on all things cricket, and especially both India, Pakistan, batting it out this Sunday, of course. Thank you very much for joining, gents.
Thanks, boys.
Thank you.
That's all we have time for, everyone. Thanks very much for tuning in wherever you are. You're obviously listening to this on our website, swamiarmy.com. Please also join us on Twitter and Facebook, and also the new app we've got now in conjunction with PlayUp. Make sure you download PlayUp and join the Swami Army channel for all news and tweets and videos about the cricket matches throughout this World Cup that Team India plays. We'll be at every game. You'll see all the live. We'll see all the little different videos and atmosphere that we're creating. So stay tuned to the channel on the PlayUp app. You can get that from the App Store, which is pretty straightforward. But until next time, we'll be back again to preview the next match that India plays, okay, which is against South Africa next Sunday. But this Sunday, 15th of February, 2 p.m. local time in Adelaide, it's going to be India versus Pakistan World Cup match. We can't wait. We'll all be there. And hopefully we'll see another victory for Team India against Pakistan in a World Cup to make it 6-0. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening to us, and we'll chat soon.